everyone, and welcome to the Waste World Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Gage Edwards, and this week we're bringing you another one of our sessions from Waste Expo 2024. This week we have the panel titled, Recycling is BS, Combating Myths and Altering Perceptions for Everyone's Sake. 8 out of 10 Americans report that recycling is worth the effort. Yet, in homes with curbside recycling collection, over half of their recyclables end up in the trash. Why? Why? Listen into the panel to hear about key research findings into what it will take from all of us in the value chain to incite the change necessary to accelerate recycling best practices. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to our session here today. Recycling is BS, Combating Myths and Altering Perception for Everyone's Sake. My name is Nick Trout. I'm with Sourcewell, and I'm going to be moderating our session here today. First off, everyone, thank you for your support of Waste Expo and the NWRA. Your participation and feedback is sincerely appreciated. And before we start, like any good session, we have our house rules, if you will, to go through quickly. So we want you to participate in this session. And so certainly following our initial discussion, there's going to be time for questions. We will have that opportunity, so know that. Business doesn't stop, especially in the public sector. We appreciate that. But if you can, please silence your phones during our time here so that doesn't become a distraction. There is an app. Everything's got an app nowadays, but there's also the Waste Expo app. If you haven't downloaded it, really encourage you to do so. So we're going to be using Slido to kind of kick stuff off here relatively soon. So that's a feedback app or a feedback program on your phone. There'll actually be a QR code we're going to pop up in a little bit. We'll ask you a question. Please give us your feedback through Slido, and that'll give us the opportunity to see where your thoughts are at on the question we'll have and so on and so forth. So just be ready for that. And so, yeah, Slido.com, but again, there'll be a QR code you'll be able to scan, and there's a code for the session, low rates. You'll see it up on the stage shortly. Mostly be ready for it. We are following CDC guidelines, and mask wearing is optional, but please use your discretion per your comfort level and respect others' choices. And then, please mark your calendar for Waste Expo 2025, May 5th through the 8th, back here in Las Vegas. And you can visit www.wasteexpo.com for more details. So again, Waste 360 and NWRA, thanks you for your attendance and your support. So today, I am joined by Cody Marshall. Cody is the Chief Systems Optimization Officer for the Recycling Partnership. Again, Nick Trout with Sourcewell. And then a little later on, we're going to be joined by 3 guests from the public sector. And so we have Lewis Cummings from Kansas City, Solid Waste Manager from Kansas City, Alan Morrison, Solid Waste Division, City of Orlando, and Jerry Schuber, Director of Solid Waste from Broken Arrow, will be coming up and joining us in a little bit. So we have an absolutely fantastic day here today. A lot of wisdom and insight from our panel members, and they let me join too, which is great. All right, so Cody, Recycling Partnership. Well, we'll come to that in just a second. Don't worry.
Pushed a button.
We'll come back to calm down. We'll get to the Slido soon, Cody. Don't worry. No, tell us a little bit about Recycling Partnership, what it is you do, and what your program is about.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be with all of you. Recognize many of you, so it's good to see you. So the partnership is a nonprofit. We're in our 10th year, and our mission is still the same over these 10 years, and that's to build a stronger recycling system. And we do that through a lot of granting and research and building resources to give out to local governments and MRFs around the country. We advocate for strong EPR systems. And then we also work on communication systems from purchase to disposal, trying to think of innovative ways to improve packaging and that communication channel for consumers. So a lot of research goes on underneath all of that, and I hope to share some of that today.
Yeah, and you're absolutely going to get the opportunity to. And you know, Recycling Partnership, certainly we saw the work that you were doing. And really just kind of the getting to the bottom of the information, what's out there for the data, where are people's minds at. That's very important work. And on the Sourcewell side, we certainly saw that, so we were excited to have this opportunity to present with you and get this message out there. You know, at Sourcewell, our goal, what we're trying to accomplish is make the procurement side easier for public sector customers so that once working with someone like Recycling Partnership, identified the opportunities, things that could be done to improve operations or whatever it might be, that Sourcewell can come in and just help you get those products, services that much easier and simpler. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I'm not going to dwell on it. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the session here, we actually want to ask you folks in the audience a question. We want an idea of what your experience is, where your mind is at, what you're thinking. And so our question to open for today using that Slido program is, why are recycling rates so low in the United States? And so is it because people are lazy? Is it that local governments are unable to resource it appropriately? The packaging is confusing, not designed for recycling. There's no end markets or not enough policy. And so you can either scan that QR code, it'll take you to the website, or it's just slido.com, and the code is low rates, and it'll take you right to that question. We'll give you a few minutes here to give us your feedback. Okay, so we still have some responses coming in, but it looks like for the most part we've settled down. Are we able to get those results up on the screen?
What do we think here?
No,
that has one response, one vote. Is there another?
Okay. Well,
what?
So believe it or not, everyone has a screen in their hand yet too, so that's okay. So if you look at Slido, the actual app on your phone, you should have gotten results as soon as you submitted. So I'll just give you the feedback here. So our clear leader in the clubhouse at 45% was packaging is confusing and not designed for recycling. That's your feedback. 45% of you here. That's what you said was the number one reason why recycling rates are so low in the United States. Second place coming in, people are lazy at 27%. At 13%, local governments are unable to resource it appropriately. 8% was not enough policy. And coming in at the last place here in our poll, 7%, there are no end markets. So we appreciate that feedback. So the reason we asked, other than sincere interest and sincere desire, is that all of those responses, sorry, Cody, I'm not going to speak for you too much.
You get into it.
But all of those responses are things that, Cody, I know you've told me you've heard at Recycling Partnership, things that you have encountered, what you're hearing from the agencies that you're working with. And so let me ask you this question. It's almost like this is a segue, right? Almost like this is sort of teeing this up. So let me ask you, Cody, Recycling Partnership, you've done a lot of research into the state of recycling. So what have you learned from these studies?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. I've just brought some slides along with me randomly to help answer the question.
How convenient.
Yeah. So we are trying to learn more and more with how people engage in the system because we want to build our resources out to impact the system. And many of you are working on this same thing. When I'm looking at those results, I think one major reason recycling rates are failing is we've set it up to be on the shoulders of local governments. Local governments have to pay for the system and run the system, and they never have enough people, they never have enough money. And so at the Recycling Partnership, we try to help support that, but we're also trying to think about policy and other things and strategy to support these local governments that are running the program. So that research and the work that we're doing that you mentioned we're trying to like look at the landscape of recycling around the country, which I'll talk about a little bit, but even more and more, we're actually surveying people, doing ethnographic studies where we're going in the home to understand how they behave and how they engage with their waste systems. So we can then build out resources to help the system more. And so we find it to be incredibly fascinating. And so what you're seeing here, this is, for example, Artemis. She lives in New Orleans and is one person that we interviewed. She's an entrepreneur, cares about the environment, cares about her community, and this is everything we found in her garbage, recyclable material, right? And so Why isn't she participating? Why isn't she engaging in the system? A few things, when you start to like dig in and have conversations with people that these are the same people in your community, you start to learn that there are a few things that happened to her. One, there was a hurricane, so it shut off their service for a minute. She wasn't aware that it turned back on. Many of you have those challenges with natural disasters and so on. But then there was another issue that kind of like it led to her questioning the recycling system and trust in the recycling system. So she is an entrepreneur. She built a rice pudding company, and so she was researching the best type of packaging. And so she's doing all this research for her business, cared deeply about it, picked this container that she's holding in this photo, and then later learned from a customer that that's not recyclable in their community at that time. And so she just got really discouraged and didn't understand why that was and how she didn't, why she couldn't figure that out. And through further discussions with her, you just start to learn that she's really looking for leadership. She's looking for signals that the recycling system does deliver what it promises, that stuff will get made into new things. And she's looking to us in this room for that leadership. So we have to start working together to figure it out, right? So the same thing is true with Susan and Drew, Manuel, Molly. All these people are people that you serve, right? These are the people that you do your jobs for these people. These people are in your communities, and that's really what it's all about, and that's what we're learning more about. We're trying to kind of understand how we engage these people, how they engage and how they work in their own systems in their home, so we can provide a better system for them. So I don't think, and nothing points to us, we haven't found any research that shows that people are lazy. You hear it a lot, but we don't think that is the case. We're finding that there is a belief behavior gap. So when we're talking to these people, they do care about recycling. Right? So when we're surveying, 77% believe recycling makes a difference and a positive impact. I'm sure you guys engage in this when you're in your own conversations. 81% say they're not doing enough. We're not doing enough as a society to combat wastefulness. Half admit that they feel guilty when they don't recycle. 81% say they have the instructions they need. 8 out of 10 see a relationship between recycling and solving the plastic pollution problem. And my favorite, 62% consider it a turnoff when someone doesn't recycle.
Dating advice. Wait, you never expected that.
Yeah, I have a lot more dating advice if you need it later on. Yet we're seeing that 76% of recyclables are lost to garbage. So they care about it, they say they care about it, but we're not actually seeing that happen. Folks that run MRFs, people that run the collection, they know this is ending up in the garbage. We do capture rate studies all over the country, and we see it. We look in the garbage, we look in the recycling, and we're seeing a bunch of recyclables. Even people that participate in the system, a bunch of recyclables in the system. And it's across the board. These are all the commodities in your traditional recycling system. Those yellow bars are what's found in the garbage. And even 50% is lost when households even have access. So you give them the right infrastructure, right? You're giving them that cart at the curb. We're still losing half. And what is that about? And we're learning it's really about engagement. We're not giving people the right tools to engage in the system. And you look around the country, and you can look at these stats in all sorts of different ways. And so when we're kind of looking at recycling rates, you can see these red states. This is typically where access is really low. So it's that just give them the infrastructure, the carts that Sourcewell helps procure. They need this access, and so you look at this, the recycling rates often are low because they just don't have those tools. But then you can look at just that, where material was actually lost. Look at California. They have a relatively high recycling rate, but they got a bunch of people. They have the right infrastructure in place. We're still losing a lot of material. And that's something we need to think about. Why is that? And it's something that we haven't really figured out as an industry that we're hoping to dig into, that the ethnographic studies and the research that we're doing, we're trying to point to. And so this is often helps us understand, like when you're looking at the data in different ways, like how do we find the right resources to really improve the system.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Cody. So that's got me thinking here a little bit. And you mentioned something in your opening statements, your opening introduction, recycling partnership. And I'm hoping you can maybe elaborate on this a little bit, or rather kind of use this as an opportunity to elaborate on that. So with this data, what you're seeing, what you're finding, what needs to happen for the residential recycling system here in the U.S. to improve? And to kind of go back to your hint earlier, is this all on the public sector?
Well, I'll answer the question first, is like, no, it isn't all on the public sector, even though the system seems to be set up that way. A place like this at Waste Expo to connect across the industry is really important, but it's all of us. It's nonprofits, it's cities, it's states, it's the federal government, but it's also brands, packaging producers to really work together to find solutions, right? This is a systems problem. And so we think about it in a number of different ways, but one way we think about it is, can people recycle and do people recycle? And so what you're seeing on this map is the yellow bar is, can people recycle? And that yellow bar is the people that cannot, right? So these are the people that do not have the recycling cart. They do not have drop-off in their rural area. And then that blue bar is, can they recycle? They can, but they might not. So they have the access, so that they have those important pieces in place. And then the green bar is, do they recycle? Do they actually participate in the system? And so the things that have been, the common theme here that I'm talking about is, we need to work in that first, the yellow bar, get the right stuff in the right place, right infrastructure, get those tools in place. But then let's make sure we give the tools to the individuals so they can engage with that system appropriately. So we have a lot of resources on our website and a big knowledge report that we put out that kind of that talks about all of the case studies and the pilots that we put together. And so we see common themes that you must have systematic communications, people must have confidence in the recycling system, engagement and outreach must be tailored to different audiences. So often, small budgets in local governments, you can really just do one big broad message. And we're learning that we really have to hone the message according to what we're seeing, like at the route level, at the home level would be best. That's where we're seeing the best results, is if when you can kind of tailor those messages. And then recycling must be designed with behavior in mind. And so like, think about people and their day-to-day lives. And so what that gets to is, that the foundation of what can really improve people's engagement in recycling is trust. So when we're doing all these ethnographic studies, we're finding that trust is that foundation. And then we need meaning. People need meaning, like, why are they doing this? Why would they even participate? And we, as leaders in this room, need to show them that there is a reason they're engaging in the system, so they don't feel like recycling is BS, they feel connected to it, and then bring convenience. I think often we try to do the convenience first, get that car on the ground. It still leaves a lot of questions. So there's a lot to this. But to get back to like the major question here is, like, there is no silver bullet, not one person in this room, not one organization in this room, not a technology here, not one technology here at Waste Expo can do it on its own. It's like, it's a systems issue, and we need to keep these really strong conversations going. We think it's basically 5 pillars to improve it, to having a successful recycling system. That's all packaging needs to be designed for recycling or reuse. All households need access to recycling. Residents need to support, they need the support to engage in the system, those tools in their homes and beyond. Recycling facilities need to effectively process, and there needs to be sufficient end markets. It's really these 5 things in our opinion. I think many of you would probably agree with that. But we got to work on all of them, not just one thing. We're never going to educate our way to a better system. We're never going to have the exact technology that's going to get us there. We got to work in these pillars that we think.
No, that's great. That insight's fantastic. Obviously lots of different facets to consider here, and I appreciate that you guys have put in the work to figure out what is the need for this market, or what's happening here, and helping people be mindful of all those different considerations there. So that's That is great. I have thought sometimes, though, this is a personal philosophy. I didn't hear this from anyone else, but I've heard sometimes that money talks. And so let me ask you this. So now we've talked about the landscape. We've talked about, some things to be mindful of. So let's get into the action side of it. Recycling Partnership is doing good work. What are some of the grant and resource programs that you have that the folks in this room could be utilizing?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We really want to give we want our resources to be used. We want feedback about our resources, so we keep improving them. These are free resources to you, plus we have these grant dollars. So we want you to engage in our Recycling Program Solution Hub. That's where all of our grants are located and all of our resources. So we operate about a $50 million granting portfolio every year. And that helps with access, so carts and trucks and drop-off sites. We also have funding for equipment for MRFs, so recycling facilities and reprocessors. But then we have these free tools, so like free sign makers and reports and case studies. And then you can also come and learn more about other communities. And what their recycling programs connect with, so you can connect with peers, and then you can verify your information because we look on your websites and try to learn what the programs are doing, so we're more informed. We want you to verify if what we're seeing is true. So we'd encourage you to scan the QR code. Takes you to a form, and then we'll be able to send you some information that you're interested in from there. So. That's a little bit about where you can find our information. We're trying to make it easy to access, and we want to give you our money.
Isn't that, that's fantastic. How many times do you hear someone say, we want to give you money instead of the other way around? No, Cody, that's wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Fantastic insight, fantastic work you're doing. Some of you at this point might be wondering, so Nick, why in the world are you from Sourcewell sitting on this stage? What does this have to do with any of it? Well, one of the things that we have found here in the past is that some agencies have been able to have a lot of success working with Recycling Partnership, utilizing these grant programs, this information, and then getting access to products and services via Sourcewell contracts to actually roll out these solutions. To your point, some of those yellow spots where folks don't have access, so getting carts, getting trucks, whatever it might be. For anyone who's not familiar with the Sourcewell program, what Sourcewell does is we award these competitively solicited cooperative contracts with suppliers and make these products and services available to you through a cooperative contract instead of having to go out and do your own bid. So you could leverage the Sourcewell contract, satisfy those bid requirements, identify exactly what it is you want to procure, and then move forward through our contract vehicle instead of, again, writing up your own IFB, RFB, putting in all that time and energy into that, and then maybe not being sure exactly what solution you're going to get on the end of it there. So, and I'm happy to talk about that further. If you want to catch me after this presentation, I can provide more details on our process. If you need to go back and tell your procurement office how that might work a little bit or whatever it is, I'm happy to do so. But so speaking of successes, agencies having success, I want to pivot here and actually play this video from the city of Moorhead.
When you're starting a new service, it's really important to make a great first impression. And you do that by using quality products that help you provide quality service. Whether it's repairing a street or picking up your garbage or picking up recycling, we provide all those services that you use every day in your community. 2 years ago, we implemented our no-sort recycling programs. No-sort allows you to put all of your material in one bin. We bought 16,000, so yeah, that's a significant amount. The advantage of going through Sourcewell is I didn't have to competitively bid since it was already bid out. You go to the Sourcewell website and you can say, I need this product, and then you click on it, you look down there and you find, oh, that's the one I want, that's the vendor I want to work with, and buy them direct. And already knowing that we would get the best price because it had been competitively bid already. It really saves time, saves you money. It's so easy. I can't stress that enough. We increased our recycling rate by 500%. You give them a good product to use and they're going to use it.
So that was the city of Moorhead, little video they were willing to do for us here a couple years ago. And now we have some more fantastic folks from the public sector going to talk about their experience with Recycling Partnership in Sourcewell. So Alan, Jerry, Lewis, thank you so much for joining us. And I got to warn you, I did watch A Few Good Men the other day, so I'm in that mood. But I'll also say this will probably be the easiest public panel you've ever had to be a part of before, as far as our questions. So thank you for that. I'd like to start with just introductions from the three of you, a little bit about your time in this industry, your experience, and your current role, and what you're doing right now with your respective cities. So, Alan, if you would start us off.
Okay. My name is Alan Morrison, and I'm the Solid Waste Division Manager from the City of Orlando. And I'm going to go ahead and answer this question for you in case you're thinking about this. I am not from Orlando, and people in Orlando don't talk like I do. So I'm originally from North Georgia, so just throw that out there. So our curbside service in Orlando, we do the 1-1-1, one garbage, one yard waste, and 1 time a week recycling. We also provide recycling and garbage service for multifamily and commercial properties within the city.
Do I need to start all over?
No.
Okay.
Oh, shoot.
All right. Okay. All right. Alan Morrison from the City of Orlando. I'm not going to go through all the whole. Well, actually, I will. Nobody in Orlando talks like I do. So just so you know, probably don't think like I do either, because that survey up there, I would have thought that packaging would have been probably. Well, I think it was 1, but I would have thought city policy would have been number 2, because up until a few years ago, City of Orlando had no city policy when it came to recycling. We had what was supposed to be recycled, but nothing that pertained to that. So I guess I'll just pass this down.
Is this one working, or do I need this? All right, we'll do this. My name is Jerry Schuber. I am the Director of Solid Waste and Recycling for the City of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. That was one with the big yellow chunk of not enough recycling available or resources available. I've been with the city for about 3 years. My life before that was about 21 years with the city of Fresno, California. So specifically, I'm there to try to build what we don't have. And so I've been in this industry for about 31 years, and I've watched it change and grow and just become something that brings all of you here to talk about how do we get better at what we do. And so I'm really excited for this opportunity to have the panel and talk through that. So thank you for being here today.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. My name is Lewis Cummings. I'm with the City of Kansas City. I've been with the city for a little over 28 years, maybe 1 more and I'm done. Working in the trash industry is rough, so as some of you may know. We do curbside pickup for roughly 162,000 residences weekly. You have weekly trash, weekly recycling. We also do illegal dump pickup. We do bulky item scheduling. Schedule that, we come pick it up. We have code enforcement. Contract out most of our recycling in Kansas City now. 2 biggest things we just accomplished is we rolled out 162,000 recycle carts last year. We use Sourcewell and the Recycling Partnerships. Phenomenal organizations. And this year we just started a rollout of 162,000 plus trash carts.
So that gets me to my question, actually. Well, first, I want to say what I love is when you go to talk about recycling, I think historically you're like, oh, San Francisco, Austin, Texas. Like, these communities have built a culture of recycling and environmental work. We got Orlando, Broken Arrow, Kansas City, like leading in recycling investments right now. And I think that's just really exciting and should be celebrated, frankly. So you've made these big investments in recycling recently, each of your cities. I'm curious, like, what are those investments? It's the first question. And why are your communities prioritizing recycling? And I'll start with you, Louis.
You want a dollar amount in the investment?
Sure.
Okay. So, in the recycling investment, it's about $8 million for the trash carts. Kansas City decided to buy all the recycling carts for each resident. That way, we own the recycling cart. We also invested in a maintenance program so that if one of our citizens have an issue with their recycling cart, they call us, we go out, repair it, replace it, and keep them moving. This way, there's no reason for them to say, oh, my recycling cart doesn't work, my wheel is broke. We provide that for you so you can recycle. We've been curbside recycling for about 20 years, but we were using smaller buckets. We do have unlimited recycling in Kansas City, so some houses you pull up and there's 6-8 buckets outside. So we decided to go to carts because one, when it gets windy, we end up with recycling all over the city. So we do have a little litter problem that we're trying to rectify. And by doing that, we are going to see, we did a litter index prior to putting out our recycling carts. We're going to wait a year, and we're going to do another litter index to see what that has done for our litter throughout Kansas City.
Oh, great. What about you, Jerry?
Well, the city of Broken Arrow actually spent quite a bit of money before my arrival. So they had received a grant from Recycle Partnership. They'd spent several $1 million in carts and trucks so that we could equip all of this city with a trash cart and a recycling cart. So we have roughly 38,000 customers currently. So we bought about 40,000 containers so that we could be prepared for the growth in that city, because the city is one of the top 100 cities in the United States to live in. And so we're seeing phenomenal growth. I'm getting about 50 new customers a month. It's just leaps and bounds. So we've invested a lot of money in the infrastructure. We've invested a lot of money in staffing and route software and hardware so that we can actually be able to take pictures of what we're seeing, be able to educate the public on what it is that they're putting in the cart that doesn't belong there. And we've invested a lot of time as well. Messaging is kind of critical. And Recycle Partnership and Sourcewell were huge partners in all of that for that before I even got there. And so I got to come in. The key wasn't exactly turned because on April 1st of 2021, I started May 10th. April 1st of 2021, one of the only transfer stations in the area that took our recycling burned to the ground. And as you saw, there's a desert of recycling out there, so there's not a lot of places you can take material. So now we had no place to take the material, and it created a huge conflict in our system. So I actually got to start with a brand new system as soon as I walked through the door because we couldn't take anything, and it created a lot of conflict. And there was some policies that went down during that time period that kind of screwed us up a little bit. So I think I'll get into detail on that a little bit more later, but when we start talking about starting and stopping or whether or not you should do one of these programs.
And could you get a sense of why your elected officials, your leadership in the city wanted to invest in recycling, make those big jumps? What was the...
You know what? That's a great question. The population in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and in Tulsa and some of the surrounding areas has predominantly be about 30% coasters. You know, us people from California or from New York who got to a place where we wanted to be someplace else. And so we move into, we call them coasters, right? We're the coasters. They always make fun of me because they say, you know, we don't like coasters who don't work, and I outwork everybody because I believe we work hard. And so our elects, though, and our city management just knew that these folks were going to have outcry, that these are programs that they wanted in their community, and they knew they were overdue. And so the writing was on the wall, and they said, we're going to jump in there, we're going to get this done, and then we're going to start finding people who know how to keep it going and to enhance it and to increase our participation and our education. And they did that. They sought out people to do that. And so I've been blessed to be part of that team.
Yeah.
I'll jump in on that one. So one of the reasons that we're making a bigger push towards recycling, we've always had a good push towards, but what we're seeing in our region is landfill capacity. And I don't know how many people are starting to see that, but you get 10 years, 15 years left of landfill capacity, you're kind of getting into the critical point. And so we're right outside of the critical point of it. So we're trying to come up with as many ways as we can to divert all we can from our landfills so they last longer. Because Kansas City will not allow a landfill to be built within Kansas City proper. So you're talking cost when you have to haul this stuff further. So it all comes down to trying to prolong our landfill life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Alan, what about you? What about Orlando?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Test.
Oh, man, we're having mic problems, Alan.
There
we go.
Test. Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree on the landfill stage. For Central Florida, Orlando as a whole, Orange County is the largest landfill in our area. It's got 15, 16 years worth of capacity. We're entering an emergency crisis as to what are we going to do next, because with the expansion and growth of Central Florida, a lot of the neighborhoods have encroached on the landfill area, and it's very difficult to get a landfill permitted in the state of Florida. But we have elected officials, both county and city, they're very motivated. They want Central Florida to be green. That's one of our saving graces. And in 2019, the city passed an ordinance mandating that commercial and multifamily homes have some sort of recycling program. And so our solid waste was tasked with that, and with help from the recycling partnership, we decided to roll out an educational plan. Okay, and that educational plan targeted three things: the quality of our recycling, the educational information, and any language barriers now that might interfere with that. And oddly enough, we patted ourselves on the back because we thought we did our due diligence by, hey, we're going to print all this information in English and Spanish. Knowing that Central Florida and the state of Florida has become such a melting pot and very diverse, we realized that we have a huge Creole population, a huge Haitian population, and a huge Brazilian Portuguese population. So now, like I say, through the partnerships, we put that educational information out there. We put it in a 4-year phase, and we just ended our phase of all the implementation into that. And our investment in recycling is probably in that $4 million phase, from a collection, education, definitely not on the disposal side of it. And I'll give you a good example. Our disposal rate, and this is where I really depend on our elected officials, is in that $170 a ton to process on average a month. That's
For your recyclables.
For recyclables, yeah. To take it to the landfill cost me $48 a ton. So you really got to have a strong political backbone there to keep moving forward and doing the right thing. And the way we're doing it is through education. It's kind of, and I was talking to my counterparts up here earlier, it's kind of like you can't just give a kindergarten the ABCs and just say, go learn them. I mean, it's got to be a phase. You just got to keep pushing. And one thing we have done, And we do this with our commercial, we do this on the residential. We tag, we do door-to-door meetings, we have HOA meetings we go to, and I have 2 people in our office that are dedicated to recycling. I encourage you to do that as part, we budget for this, but we see spikes when we're out there, okay? So we really make a quarterly push each quarter to push our recycling and keep the word out, and we've dropped down as low as 30%, only to pick it up and literally from one quarter to the next be at 70% participation, which is really good. We're going through our an audit right now, our recycling audit. You guys are all welcome to it. It's in a middle to low income area, which typically is where our less participation rates are. But one thing that we had a consultant come in and I wound up firing them doing it because they went on a 2-week basis on trying to gather information. All right, the reason that I feel like we got all skewed data is that my wife and I, we're empty nesters. We recycle everything that we can. I put my card out 1 time a month, okay? I'm participating, okay? But if they'd have come in and done that, they wouldn't have noticed that. So if you do that, make sure that you go a long period of time and document what you're doing so you don't get skewed data. But yeah, I strongly encourage on our end of it, and like I say, through the recycling partnership, education is the utmost. Because I feel like that if I went to any of you guys and asked what can you recycle in your town, city, community, area, I'd get a lot of mixed information. And that's why you got to just consistent with your information, push it. It's hard. But I'm a firm believer, just because it's hard means you don't do it, okay? But that's...
Yeah, well, great. And so Orlando's been recycling in carts for a while, like,
right.
But you're investing in multifamily is what I'm hearing, and education. And Louis and Jerry, looking to you, you've had big changes recently. Kind of new container at the house is a big change. How are you working with your residents to in this kind of culture shift? How do you keep engaging in your 2 communities? How to keep motivating and how they're engaging in the system with these new investments that are put in front of them.
Okay. So what we did when we decided, okay, we're going to go to container system. We started working on how can we get the most education using the container itself, because it's at your house. It's you see it every day if you're participating in recycling. So what we did is we created our IML that goes on the lid of the recycling cart.
In mold label.
Yeah. And I'll say this, that working with the recycling partnership, they have a ton of information to help you design that. So in working with them and our communications team, we decided how we wanted to do this. We put all this information out there. But the one thing that we didn't really think about was how diverse Kansas City is. We have one neighborhood in the northeast area of Kansas City. It's central city, but it's the northeast central part of the city. It's probably has 60 different languages spoken in that geographical area. So how do we get all of these people to understand this IML that's on the cart in English? So what we did, we designed a QR code that if your phone, whatever your dominant language on your phone is, if you scan that, it comes up in your language. So by investing in that and getting the information to those people that they can read and understand it is one of the biggest things we did. We also have created a waste guide. And in that waste guide, there's all this information about recycling, there's information about trash, It's a one-stop thing for every citizen. You can find out pretty much everything you want in there. We also have a dedicated website that if you click on there, it will also take you to our website, and it will change whatever you're reading into whatever language that you have on your phone. So our biggest thing was making sure that all of our residents had the information and could access it and could read it in your language and go from there. But one of the other investments that we're doing is we're going to also start doing pre-route trash auditing, or not trash, sorry, pre-route recycling auditing. And what that is we'll have a crew that goes out prior to the truck getting to the residences, and they will audit the trash carts. We know this will take time, but to change the behaviors and all that is going to take some time. So we'll have a team out, they'll audit, they'll leave educational materials if your recycling is contaminated, they'll do that. They'll leave door hangers. We're also going to set up a system where maybe we give some type of reward to citizens that do have good recycling. So we won't just close your lid and move on. We'll let you know, hey, thank you, you're doing a great job of recycling, and here's an extra trash tag for you, something. We haven't decided what that's going to be. But this is a situation here where we're not inventing the wheel on this. We actually got this from Orange County, Florida. They've been doing this for a little while, so that's where we need to reach out and pull each other's information because somebody's probably doing something to help you.
Yeah, great point. What about you, Jerry? How are you keeping your residents motivated to engage in your new system?
Well, I'll tell you, that is a great question. I love what you're doing. That's fabulous. One of the things that was culture shock for me, moving from a place where there's a recycling center on every corner to a place where there's one in your entire region. You have one in every city that participates in what we call the Metropolitan Environmental Trust. It's a recycling facility that takes material, but you have to bring it to them. And so when we moved to the curbside, it was a brand new culture shock for everyone who was engaging in it. And so for those residents who go, it doesn't matter, it's BS, it doesn't get recycled. I have to educate them at a different level, and sometimes I'll go out there myself. I have educators, they go out, they have conversations, but I love to have the conversation during outreach and education efforts where I'll tell them, if I were to go to your house right now and turn the spigot on your garden hose and take that hose and put it in down at the curb and just let it run all day, would you be pissed off at me or not? And always they say yes. I mean, that's a waste. What a waste of a natural resource. And I look at them and I go, what do you think recycling is? I mean, we already harvested it. We've already refined it. Now what we're asking you to do is put it in another container so that we can do it again. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as turning off the spigot on the front of your house so you're not wasting that resource down the drain. And once they start connecting dots, it's like light bulbs go on. They're like, well, yeah, but I gotta drag that thing back and forth. I think you drag your garden hose out every time you wash your car. Don't tell me that it's not a little work to do something that matters for everyone else. It's not just about you, it's a social contract. We're responsible to one another to do some small things that mean a lot.
Yeah.
So all I'm asking you to do is put it in the blue card. We've already provided it to you. I mean, it's part of your rate. We don't give you a break because you don't do it. And that's the other thing. In California, we have regulations that say you will, thou shalt, right? In Oklahoma, it's get out of my face. So, and I respect that. I really enjoy being in a place where maybe I don't have somebody thumbing me all the time when I don't do exactly what I'm supposed to do. But then that means that you have to have another kind of conversation, which is, hey, this is what's good for not just you, but for me. And we appreciate you doing this. And so our participation rates are based on people voluntarily participating in recycling. And that's a tough place to go when you're dealing with a culture shock. But we have our participation rates in the 90s, in the 90 percentile range for a volunteer program. And so I look at that, And with contamination rates in the 26% range, when I was in Fresno, they were 49%. So I look at these folks and I go, you guys do an outstanding job. We just got to tweak this down a little bit. And that means continued education, outreach, discussions, and doing things that tell people that it's important to us as it is to you. When we do an event around town, we don't deliver just trash containers for the event. We deliver recycling containers too. Do as I say, not as I do. We do it as well. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be a holistic approach to everything you do about the education components, and making sure that people know we mean it, we're serious about it, and we want you to participate.
Yeah.
And here's how we can make it that easy for you to do. You just like the spigot on your house. You'd shut it off if it was wasting that resource. So.
One thing I really loved what Broken Arrow did is you made it an opt-out.
Yeah.
So like some communities, some of you might experience your program and it's an opt-in program. That's just like a barrier you're putting in front of residents that are busy, and that opt-out program has really helped your participation. So really, I appreciate that. Just to like maybe, Nick, I know you have a couple questions. I just have one quick question is, like, what do you tell your elected officials or people in your communities when they say, like, recycling doesn't work, the city shouldn't pay for it? What's your answer?
Well,
recycling's BS.
Well, we try to put the data in front of them, and in Kansas City, we're pretty open data. You can see what we have going on all the time. Going through the website, you can pretty much pull it out. So we ask our MRF, what's being recycled, what percentage of the recycling that comes to you is being recycled. And, we have probably about 80% of the recycling that goes into the MRF is actually being recycled and sold. So which I think it's actually really good compared to some national standards. But I do field some of these calls where, I just saw the trash truck throw the recycling, in the back of the trash truck. It's the same truck that picked up my trash. Well, the truck came by your house at, 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning. It's 4 o'clock. So they may have had to go and swap out and come back. Things happen. But you got to have good information for the citizen to make them understand. Take the time to make them understand. Because that one citizen that you piss off and they decide the hell with the recycling, they may be in their neighborhood meeting, telling 5 or 6 other people. So, you don't want that, information spreading out through. You want to take time, talk to the citizen. You may have another meeting to go to, but, to make somebody happy, spend an extra few minutes with them, make sure they get what's going on, make sure they understand what's being recycled. And I'll say one more thing on this. My biggest problem with recycling that even makes me mad is when, today we can recycle 1s, 3s, and 5s. 2 weeks we can't. So, you'll get people calling in, well, are we still recycling this or not? And then you got to tell them, well, no, the market's changed and we're not doing this anymore. So now we can only do 4 or 5 and 7. So that's kind of the biggest issues I think I see with recycling.
What do you say, Jerry, when someone tells you it's BS, we don't need to do it?
I have 2 different answers. One's for the public, and I kind of.
Let's face it.
I'm not a politician, and everybody who knows me knows that I'm going to shoot you straight every single time.
The camera in the back isn't recording.
That's fine.
Say whatever you want.
And one of my answers for the public is what I gave you about the water. It's a resource. You need to look at it differently. For my elects, we make our money on tax revenue. I mean, Oklahoma doesn't have, it's sales tax revenue. That's how we survive. And when I tell you that we're one of the top 100 places in the country to live, that means that what people are doing is they're moving there because they want to live in a place that they embrace. But if you want corporate America there, and this is what I always tell our elects, part of what we do in our recycling programming has to be about looking at corporate America and saying, hey, this is what they want for the people that work for them. They want them to have the ability to have recycling programming. They want them to have a place where they know that that's valued by the community that they live in. And it checks boxes in their ESG policies. They're able to say, here's some things that we recognize that are important to us in our policies. Oh, and here's a community that embraces that as well. And they get to check their boxes and move on to other things that may be hurdles, because they're all going to have hurdles no matter what. But they can say, this is not one of them. Our community that we're looking at is one where we can move in, we can open a business, we can build a factory, and we love you too. For all of you who are thinking that we'd love you to come and do that, but
you are a politician.
Yeah, well, okay, maybe just a little. So the other thing is that we then are able to tell these elects, this is part of your sales pitch when it comes time for making Broken Arrow, Oklahoma attractive to other people. Is these are the things that we've done to be proactive about where we're headed as a community. And the best thing you can do is then be champions of that, sell that, and run with it. And then, if you really don't believe that it works, take a look around Oklahoma where we have glass recyclers, we have fiber recyclers. One of the things about Oklahoma is that we can build the factories that do what we need them to do with the materials in state or local within states, within a state or two away from us. We don't ship anything out. In California, we used to put it on a ship and send it somewhere so that they could process it. Here, we do it in-house. So everything we have is somewhere in the state or near the state. I was so impressed with that when I moved to Oklahoma. And it's a great sales pitch when I'm telling the elects, don't tell me it doesn't work, because I'll take you to the factory down in Muskogee and show you crushing glass and show you what they're doing with it to get it out into the community and into those factories.
That's a great approach.
So I got a car, let's go, hop in, we'll go.
That's a great approach.
Most of the time that's enough.
Yeah.
So,
what about you, Alan? What are you telling your...
Well, one thing that I always kind of fall back on, one thing that politicians understand is transparency. And by saying that, I think that you, in your hometown, county, whatever municipal government you're a part of, is create your own story with this transparency. Where I am in Orlando, we control none of the infrastructure. However, we have access to that infrastructure. Again, I would create my own story with that to tell, so that when this subject, is it all BS, you know that we're doing the right thing, okay? Because there's only so much when we have no infrastructure of what we can do. We just make sure we do the right things right. To Jerry's point, I can go to, we use a couple of different MRFs, or the county does, and I have total transparency or open invitations to these processing facilities. But yeah, I have been asked that by elected officials, and I tell them, with confidence that, hey, I can take you to it. I can show it to you. Mm-hmm. But I agree with Lewis. One of the things that I think creates the BS story here is one day I can use that pizza box or that clamshell, I can recycle it. The next day we can't. And I think that's where we, probably as the government, we need to adapt what we're going to say across the board so everything's consistent, because it is very inconsistent. It's confusing to me sometimes. Yeah. Depending on which MRF I go to, and now we're in the process of vetting a new MRF, a new technology, which totally changes everything that we're already doing. I just hope it is going to be sustainable. So my key there is total transparency.
Yeah, well, that's great. We've learned with a few of our studies that that is a problem, how it changes, and actually how could we shift the narrative to actually embrace recycling's change and say yeah, it's going to change, just be ready for it, and we'll make sure you're aware, and people feel a little bit more comfortable with that. But Nick, I know you had a few questions too.
Yeah, so I want to allow as much time as possible for our audience to ask questions of Alan, Jerry, and Lewis, and so I just have one final question from me. kind of the nice sum it up type question, if you will. So we've got folks from the public sector here, and they might be thinking about making investments, thinking about things that they can roll out in their own communities. What do they need to hear about making this decision? What do you want to let them know about approaching something like that?
Okay.
We're close to cocktail hour.
Approaching recycling as a whole.
Rolling out a new program,
Oh, a new program.
expanding. Yep.
I think prepping your citizens, letting them know what's coming, what the expectation is going to be, so that when you purchase this recycling cart and you set it on their doorstep, then you start educating. You're already behind the curve on that. You need to start your education prior to putting that recycling cart out there. And that, goes with, it can be mailers, it can be, social media is huge. We do a ton of social media, and we have a whole department that does social media stuff. Don't ask me to do it, but they take care of all of that. So I think it's making them aware of what's going on, educating them about it, because when it all boils down, for me, it is tax dollars that are being used. So we need to let the citizens know what we're doing with your tax dollars. So I just think it's education from, beforehand and all the way through the process, and continued education.
So I completely agree. I don't think Lewis could have hit it better. The education component is huge. The other thing I would say is, obviously we had a fire, so we started and then we stopped. And so for any of your jurisdictions who are thinking about, hey, recycling is too expensive, we're not going to continue it. Starting anything over or starting anything after you've stopped it is brutal. I mean, we had an 18% contamination rate and went to 26% contamination rate, mostly because the outcry was, when are we going to get this back? Why can't we use this container? I don't want this thing in my garage. Come pick it up. And we were opt out. So the fear was, we'll let them do something else with the container. And at the time, the push was, well, just let them put some trash in it until the system's back up. That's going to be about a year. Don't.
Oh, wow.
Do not. Yeah, and I counsel people before marriage, and I'll tell you this, I always tell them, don't do anything the first year you don't want to do the rest of your life. For any of you who have been married a long time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is what we tell them. You don't start something and stop. You're going to give them, they all have very great long-term bad memory, and they remember the thing you don't want them to remember forever. So whatever you do, don't start and stop, and don't tell them they can do something with a container that they shouldn't. That's why the education piece about, we take it today, now we don't take it, stick to some basics and stay with those, and then be very transparent and give them trust that you are watching out for them by giving them education components about why things are coming in and out of your markets. But let them know. I mean, that means charrettes, it means social media, it means stuff in your mailers, in your bill. It doesn't matter. Whatever works in your community to get that education component out, do it a lot. We attend every single event the city has, and farmers markets and all that. We put booths there. We are there available to the residents. We have an expo, a city expo, where every department sits down in a room, a big building like this, where people come in and get to talk to each one of our departments and then get presentations about what we do and how we do it. Be transparent. Give them all the opportunity to talk to you. And if you're in a role like we're in at the top, that means your phone rings more than everyone else's, and you answer it and you talk to them. Because once they talk to the top, they feel like, if they're telling me this, and make sure your people are saying the same things. So.
All right, I'll be really quick. I'll add, great. These two guys, that's hit it spot on. I'll take it one step further. if you don't already have a program, or if you have a program, look at it like this. Is this an opt-in program or is it a mandatory program? And then if it's a mandatory program, find out what your policy is. If you don't have a policy, I'd create a policy so that you got some teeth to back it up with what you're doing. On the educational side, if you go down that route of changing your policy or putting a policy in, make sure you educate your elected officials, because they're the ones that are going to take the phone calls, and they're going to be the ones that have to defend you. They've got to know that plan just as good, or if not better than you do, because you may come and go, and so will they. But I can't stress the importance of, I think we all three said it, or all five of us up here said it, the education is very important, but then make sure you know your audience you're speaking to, okay? And again, like I say, the policy, find out what kind of teeth you got. That's it.
Thanks, Alan. So we are going to allow the opportunity here for the audience to ask some questions of our panelists. And so, yep, we got a microphone going around. While the microphone is heading back for the first question, I just want to say we have a public sector networking event following this session. It'll be out on the pavilion just beyond the glass doors there. Any public sector attendees are welcome to join us. I think we will all be available for that if you have further questions of us, want to catch us in a conversation there. So just that quick shout out. We have a question in the back.
Yeah, overall, are you seeing more recycling engagement in states that have return deposits? And kind of with so many landfills kind of in that crisis zone, are you going to be seeing policies like that come into play in more areas, or maybe even with new materials or types of packaging to encourage it?
Hey, do you mind if I grab this one real quick? I don't have CRB in our state, and so it's a great question. I don't know why we haven't gone to that route, and I think coming from a state where there was money to be spent on grants and other things because of CRB, I think that states that are going to embrace recycling and start to understand the value of the education components, the value of having places in your state that have a desert for recycling that need to be flourishing, and they need to be watered. They're going to have to come up with some sort of financial method to deal with that, and CRB is a great way to do it. And I will say this, partnerships like Recycle Partnership and having Sourcewell and places where these folks come alongside you and help you get to a place where you can have some infrastructure that you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, invaluable. If you're not looking at them, you should be. That's my answer. These two may have another one, but.
Well, in Florida, we don't have it, and I feel very confident our governor is not behind that, so it's not even on the table.
Same here.
Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida, and he's real quick to remind everybody of that very often.
I'll just say that the DRS systems can vary across the 10 states that have them, but that some states that do have them do have typically higher recycling rates, but how they engage in the curbside program kind of varies a little bit, but that's a good question.
Now, we had CRB where it was. We didn't see aluminum. We didn't see plastic. Anything with a value to it, we saw very little of it. It increased the rate of recycling, but it also increased the rate of money that we would get back in a cost-sharing contract. We don't see that in places where they don't have a CRB. You get a mixed bag. You get it all. So,
See, go ahead. Well, I'll hit this real quick. So if you are looking for a return right now with recycling, you might as well stop because the returns are not there anymore. We have an agreement with our recycler that we receive a certain percentage back of what's sold. There's just not enough right now. When we hit the China sword, it dropped it off to where it was a minimal amount, but recycling is super important. So in the city of Kansas City, we know that it is an investment from the city. We're not getting a return right now.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello. This is more so of a comment. I'm just a few miles south of the gentleman there from Orlando, from Palm Beach County, Florida. We have a very successful recycling program. I'm not sure how most of the gentlemen on the panel do it from where they're from, but we have a 2-bin system where it's the dual stream, where it's source separated at the curb. And what we found is we also have those ILAs with the 39 municipalities for the cost sharing. We give them back 50% of all the money that we make, and we actually do make money on recycling. We have some of the lowest contamination rates in the country at less than 10%, and that's due to the contracts that we put out with the haulers. We actually have that built into the contract. So for instance, if they bring a load of recycling to our MRF, they don't get charged a tipping fee. But if you have over 10% contamination in it, you pay the $42 a ton garbage rate. So they're incentivized to not pick up contaminated recycling. And so that's just what's worked for us. I didn't know if any of them participated in the dual stream system. And we actually have 3 distributors who compete for our recycling. So we actually have a pretty good successful system.
Can I ask you how many residential homes that you service?
A little over 300,000 in unincorporated.
Nice.
Yeah, we don't have dual stream, but we also haul it all ourselves. We don't have any contracts for anyone else to haul it, and we only do residential, so we don't have the commercial side of the business. So if anybody who does commercial knows that's where the money is for a lot of your resources. We do it with residential only, and it's a single stream. So it's a very successful program. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really impressive. For us, we have to utilize the county transfer station to take it to Waste Management, and then Waste Management dictates to us what kind of rate we're going to get, and there is no return at all on any of that.
We're an 80-20 split for profit, but as we all know that the markets don't really have a lot of profit in them right now. So our costs are mostly in transportation and labor, and that's where it just kind of hammers us. But you know, we're not doing it because it makes money. We're doing it because it's what you should be doing. We're doing it because we're sending a message that it's important. It's our portion of the social contract, right?
So I would encourage you, make sure you come to our public sector networking event. You'll probably be the most popular person there.
Mm-hmm. You'll be in one of these seats next year, so be careful.
Yeah. Other questions?
For the mic.
Yeah.
How you doing? I'm Tyson Farrell from Louisville, Kentucky, Solid Waste Management, and this is for Mr. Cummings. Do you all do recycling bi-weekly?
No, we're weekly.
Okay, you are weekly. Okay, we just went to bi-weekly within the last 2 years, I would say. It's working out pretty good, but we only have about a 44% overall in the USD that recycle. So it just we try to do recycling bi-weekly also in yard waste, and it's economics really. Yeah. Saves money. We do a lot more overtime on the 3 service weeks curbside, and we were just curious, man. I've been sitting here hearing you. It's almost like we mirror you all.
Yeah, we looked at bi-weekly, but it would be way too much recycling on the curb for us.
Oh yeah,
to go bi-weekly. What size cart do you guys use?
I'm sorry.
What size cart?
95 and 65.
Okay.
Gallon carts.
Yeah, we use 65, but like I'm saying, if your cart's overrunning and you have it, manageable on the ground, mm-hmm. we pick all the recycling up.
Right, and like as far as cardboard, if it's bundled, they can even set it to the side.
Yeah.
And as long as it's folded up. And I was just curious how that was working for you all, if it was doing bi-weekly or weekly. And we did at the beginning get a lot of complaints. Of course, they didn't like that, and it goes back to the political side. Mm-hmm. But once everybody got used to it, now it's quiet. I would hope that it would go bi-weekly for both 1 week recycling, 1 week yard waste, and vice versa. But I think they don't want the calls downtown.
No, we pick up weekly, trash and recycle.
Gotcha. Okay, everything but weekly except recycling. All right, thank you.
All right. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. Maybe? Bueller?
Ready for a cocktail hour, maybe.
It's true.
I'll say this, if you guys aren't using Sourcewell, you are working way too hard.
Whoa, what a plug.
Amen.
What a
I'm
plug.
gonna
He's
tell
totally
you,
right.
We were able to use Sourcewell for both of our cart purchases, and it's a nightmare if you're going out trying to purchase that many carts and you have to go out and get the bids, and you have to get 3 bids, and you got to pick which one's the best one, and sometimes it's not always the best one. It's really nice to just say, are you in the Sourcewell contract? Yes. Okay, here you go. So
Yeah, you don't have to fight with your counsel. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely look into it if you're not participating in it. I mean, there's multiple things that you can do with Sourcewell, and we use as many as we can.
Thanks, Louis. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, my check is in the mail.
I think we got one more question in the back. We still have time for one more. Yep.
All right, here we go.
Hi, my name's Janae D'Ambrosio with D'Ambrosio Trading, and I was curious if you guys have an action plan for textile recycling.
You know, that's ironic because Janae and I go way back, and I appreciate her being here today. Fabulous partnership that I had in California with her to do textile recycling in our community. And one of the things that I said was we got to connect while we're here because Oklahoma's in need. So it's one of those things that you should be looking at. Everybody's talking about food right now because compost is the big issue, food waste, and the food collection is a huge part of SB 1383 coming out of California. Everything's kind of moving that direction. We're all looking at it, we're all thinking about it, but that young woman in the back is light years ahead on some things that are next. So if you're not thinking about textile recycling as part of your plan, how you get that out of the waste stream, you better be, because it's next. After food waste, that's where they're going to be focused. And so we are engaging in that discussion right now while we're looking at composting programming. Our biggest problem with composting programming is we also want to use our wastewater material as well as part of our composting program. And with the PFAS regulations being in the air, it's kind of difficult to make a call as to how we're going to go about that. So I think we're all dealing with the same exact problems. They have a different zip code on them, but it's, we all know that the world we're in as far as recycling, solid waste, composting, it's all changing, and so we've got to be able to adapt. So anyway, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alan, Jerry, Louis, and thank all of you. We understand the hard work that you put in your communities and cities and organizations every year. So thank you so much for the work you do. We'll see you at the Public Sector Networking event. Thank you, everyone.